Garrison Green is one of the more upscale retirement residences in Calgary.
Change the direction, that's it. Okay, no, not just the hands, understand.
It's geared toward active seniors, and there's plenty to do here.
Roll the shoulders again. Roll the shoulders. I think you made me work up a sweat today.
We first heard about Garrison Green from this resident, 88-year-old Cam Mitchell. His wife is Mary June, and she's 91. A few months ago, Cam heard the head of the Canadian Medical Association speaking about end-of-life choices for seniors, and it irritated him.
Particular phrase that the president of the CMA used, what we all want is what's best for our parents, our seniors. And that triggered things up here, and I said, yeah, and is our point of view ever going to get heard?
So, Cam decided to survey 25 seniors at Garrison Green to gauge their views on end-of-life issues.
Could outline physical or mental conditions.
80% told him they want to be allowed to die when they feel the time is right.
And a lot of them are telling me, if let me die doesn't work, then make me die. And the vast majority, I think it was, 80% again, saying they wanted to die by lethal injection by the medical profession. On their terms, they want to be able to say, if I'm in this specific condition, give me the shot.
A lethal injection?
A lethal injection, yep.
It was clear from Cam Mitchell's survey that seniors here were open to discussing end-of-life decisions. We wondered how they would react to John Allen Lee's plan to end his life before his body and mind began to decline. We showed parts of John Allen Lee's interview to Ray and Laverne Waldock, a couple who spent years in Africa as missionaries. We showed it to former nurse Mary Fenwick and to retired engineer Jack Haston. And of course, to Cam and Mary June Mitchell, whose initial reaction was a bit of a surprise.
Is that it? That's it. Yeah, okay.
Sounds like you talking.
Well, my first reaction was that everything he seems to be thinking and saying pretty much parallels mine. I feel so strongly about dying on my terms and my timing that I am exploring ways of achieving that.
Mary June understands her husband's view, but she doesn't share it.
I think there's a time to live and a time to die, and there's a passage in between, and you have to go along on this road, whichever road you happen to be given.
Engineer Jack Haston had mixed feelings.
Well, I think he is certainly quite self-centered. He apparently has little concern for the effect of his actions on others that are fairly close to him. In that said, I think his plan of action is quite rational and along the lines of the thoughts of many of us.
Former nurse Mary Fenwick.
Why should it just be if you had a lot of pain? I think keeping people alive when there's no longer any joy or life in him, that's cruel and unusual punishment. And I think we should start thinking of that as we think of end of life.
For Laverne Waldock, the video brought back painful memories of her grandfather's lingering death.
But as a 9-year-old, to see my grandfather, who I dearly loved, day after day suffering as my grandmother and my mother looked after him, I found it very hard, and I wouldn't want to see that happen to him or to me if there was some way that they could make it possible not to be such a stressful passage.
But Ray thought it was simply wrong for John not to think of his family.
There's an old saying, no man lives unto himself and no man dies unto himself. And I think this excessive individualism of our society, which says, I'll make my decisions and the hell with the rest of the people, that's no go. Because there are people who care for you.
When seniors talk about ending their lives, alarm bells go off for professionals. After all, suicide rates amongst seniors have been climbing in Canada, particularly amongst elderly men. Carrie Bowman of the Joint Centre for Bioethics at the University of Toronto says it's crucial to figure out the difference between someone making a rational choice and someone who's depressed.
I have seen time and time again when people are saying, I don't want to live, that you look at them as the weeks and months have progressed when they've received treatment for depression, and in fact they see the same world through very different eyes.
Clinical psychologist Marnan Heisel from Western University says research has identified certain characteristics among seniors that indicate a higher risk of suicide.
Much of the research out there has looked at and really supports the notion that people who are rigid, who are inflexible, who have very clear ideas of what they want, what they'll accept, what they won't, a sort of closed-mindedness, tend to be the ones who are at higher risk.
Still, to Cam Mitchell, there's more than one definition of depression. Here's how he defines it.
It'd be terribly depressing to me to be kept alive in conditions and circumstances that I hated. That'd be depressing. There's a different approach to depression.